I wanted to stay home. And so I went to work with Greenville County. I started up the criminal interdiction unit on the interstate for Greenville County, which was myself, 3 other guys, 2 of those guys had canines, and almost immediately out of the gate, we were showing success. Now, if you guys don't know, Interstate 85 comes right out of Atlanta, dumps into Charlotte and some other big cities going north, and it is used by these criminal organizations. Now, it might be drugs, it might be black market guns, it may be stolen merchandise, bootleg merchandise, people with warrants, you name it, it's out there. We don't exclusively look for drugs, even though drugs is more predominant. 2020, one of my deputies got killed by a drug trafficker. I'd say that's probably the biggest change that's happened since last election, and it has affected me. I had to watch it in real time. Jumper served 28 years with the sheriff's office over there. He was the only man to date that has made me feel small because he was so big. He was huge, just a massive guy, but he had a heart equally as massive. And so shortly after that, that's when I had to take a step back. I had been out there on that interstate for over 20 years. I met with my now sheriff. He was good enough to, once I healed up, I was also injured. He was good enough to let me go into investigations. You know, and I explained to him, hey, I've worked the road, I've done traffic, I've done dope, I've done all this other stuff, handled a dog, and I'd like to try something different. So now I'm doing investigations for Greenville County. I went to homicide for my first 3 months and did a lot of training. Again, saw more dead people. The sheriff came to me shortly after and asked if I would be interested in a new investigative unit. So basically now Greenville County has an investigator working 24 hours a day. So we've got a small unit of investigators that are attached to the platoons, and we rotate shifts with them. As a matter of fact, I just finished up 6 weeks of 3rd shift, which is not easy. But it's a great position. What the sheriff realized over there was we're losing a lot of our customer service on calls or interactions with the public. Something I've always been big on because it's always a face-to-face exchange, and I always want to leave a pleasant, outlook or feeling with anyone I've ever dealt with, except for the people who's trying to kill me. But so I thought it was a great thing, and it has turned out to be a wonderful thing. Now we may investigate something as simple as a petty larceny, all the way up to what's really wearing us out right now are overdose deaths. And folks want to know, well, what is it? Well, it's fentanyl.
Yeah.
That's it. It's fentanyl. That's what's killing everybody. People who use cocaine is being laced with it. Because I can tell you now, DTOs or drug trafficking organizations south of the border, they don't care what they have to cut these narcotics with. It's a business to them. If they kill 100,000 people over here, it doesn't matter. They've already gotten paid. Does that make sense? They're very cold-hearted. I think right now, I'm just a little over 1.5 years into my current position, and I have gotten 71 overdose or death investigations that I have personally signed off on, that I have worked. 71, a little over 1.5 years. Probably well over 100 that I've been to, but someone else, came in and took it over. I've had as many as 5 overdose deaths in one weekend that I worked. That's not counting the other ones that happened that other investigators worked. When I tell you it's a huge problem, it's a huge problem. Now, I campaigned last time, and John, now I'm sorry, I spoke last Thursday for Moms of Liberty. 15 minutes turned into over an hour. So when you feel good about it, just cut me off because I like to talk.
She's better at it than I am.
Yeah,
You were talking drugs.
Okay, drugs. Yes, drugs.
5
Up to.
overdoses.
Right, so last go round, I campaigned a lot on drugs. That was one of the biggest missed opportunities I was seeing in this county, my home county, that wasn't being addressed, which kind of got me fired up to even put my name in a hat. I campaigned on how I would get rid of it. Nothing has changed. It's proactive policing, but I'm a realist. I know that you cannot enforce the drug problem away. You just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with enforcement, education, and some sort of rehabilitation, that's a big one right now. There's not much of that. I can't get out of the QT to grab a drink or a hot roller, you know, on night shift without someone walking up who's an addict and asking me if I can help them. And you know what I tell them? There's nothing I can do. Unless you need to go to the hospital, I can call you an ambulance. Maybe a doctor can get you in some kind of program, but even their hands are tied. They can only get so many people through, and then they just have to turn them right back loose.
Oh my gosh.
So that is not going to change. I still want to carry those out, again, enforcement, education, and then somehow put my head together with somebody in a higher place to work on some sort of rehabilitation. The only one that I'm familiar with right now would be Heart to Heart, and it's faith-based, it's free. I think Alex runs a pretty good program. He runs a tight ship, but he runs a pretty good program down in Liberty. Outside of that, I'm not familiar with anything else. But yes, ma'am.
Doesn't Miracle Hill run one?
It's in Greenville County.
Oh, you're talking for in Pickens County.
Pickens County, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's in Greenville County.
But that's a big problem. And I know addicts. I'm sure, you know, there's someone in this room that has a family member that's an addict. It's sad. You watch them decay until, you know, they're gone. And again, with this fentanyl stuff, it's getting everybody. It's getting kids. It's getting young adults. It's getting older. I think my oldest overdose, I had one that was 64 and I had one that was 72. Overdose on fentanyl. They thought it was cocaine or whatever else they were doing. So it's very sad. Back to the education part. I know when I came up, come through school, maybe some folks in here did too. We had the DARE program.
Yeah.
And you know, I thought that was. I mean, we got to see a police officer. I didn't grow up really around police officers, and I thought that was great. So I listened to every word they were saying. You know, they tell you some things, show you some things, and when you're that age, when you're that young, and your mind's still developing, it's good to see it there in the classroom from a professional versus seeing it on the streets. And that was one of the things that helped me not get around that stuff when I was young. And I had friends, of course, in high school that would smoke weed and started doing that stuff. And, you know, one by one, I would just push them to the side. And luckily, I was strong enough to do that and not cave to peer pressure. But I knew that I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want to go down that path. A lot of folks can't do that. That education, being in schools, being proactive and involved would help law enforcement out tremendously. And teachers. So y'all know the story. 2 weekends ago, I'm working on reports late at night. It was close to midnight. They give out an armed robbery call at Cherrydale Cinemas. I was just a couple minutes down the road. So I responded because that's what I do. Even though I'm an investigator, I'm still a law enforcement officer. I see the suspect walking through the parking lot. He sees me. He takes off on foot. I'm much older and fatter and smarter, so I stayed in my car and followed him. He did have a gun. That's what the call was. He put a gun in somebody's face and robbed him. He goes around the building, turns, reaches in his waistband. So you know, I try to get out of my car because it's go time, right? How many people in here would have pulled the trigger? Seriously?
On somebody?
Somebody pulling a gun on you that you know just robbed somebody? Nobody? Would y'all just look at it? Come on.
Yeah, but I would have shot somewhere that wouldn't kill him.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we're trained to shoot to kill. Deadly force only. So I was 100% by law cleared to smoke this guy.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm sorry, that's slang too.
Yeah, but that's okay.
But I could have shot him. I could have used deadly force. I would have been justified. I would have been able to return back to work in a couple of weeks. Luckily, he threw the gun down. Luckily, again, I'm older, fatter, slower. I couldn't get out of my car quick enough. Thank you, God. I chased him on across the highway. Me and a female deputy got him tackled, put in handcuffs. Take a guess how old he was. Anybody want to take a stab at it?
16.
Who said 12? Close. 13 years old. What were y'all doing at 13 years old? Were you robbing anybody?
No,
No.
definitely not.
No.
I've only been in law enforcement 23 years. And I can tell you, when I first started, we didn't have 13-year-olds robbing people. And this is not a just a chance crazy thing. This happens a lot. A lot.
Is it gang related or just, or that, or no?
Drug money.
They say it's gang related. They're in these gangs.
Yeah.
They're the gang members that we have in South Carolina. If you took a busload and dropped them off in South Central Los Angeles, they wouldn't make it a day.
Sure.
We have wannabe gang members.
Well, I guess
Okay.
there's some-
And at the end of the day, they are committing crime. They get reckless. They get, like this kid. I mean, this movie theater is crowded, and he put a stolen gun in another kid's face and robbed him of his cash. You know, they want to live that lifestyle. They think that they're, these OG gang members, whatever they say they're not. They just don't have any structure at home. Out of the two kids that we arrested, one was 13, one was 16, we called both sets of parents, so 2 moms and 2 daddies. One grandma showed up. And then our teachers and our educators
Yeah.
and our school resource
joke.
officers, and they have to deal with those kids. So there's a huge disconnect, huge problem right now in society that law enforcement is dealing with, and we don't always know how to deal. We're not social workers. We don't understand that. We don't understand how to fix those problems. But that's just some of the stuff that we're dealing with and seeing right now. And everything that happens in Greenville is going to move this way at some point.
Yep.
I'm already seeing the stuff in Easley, my hometown,
Yep.
and it's disheartening. I'm hoping that, and I'm not here to talk trash about any candidate or any incumbent or anything like that, but I'm hoping after the next election, we elect a sheriff. It is a very important role. It is the chief law enforcement officer in the county. Cannot be removed by the governor unless the sheriff is indicted for a crime. Did y'all know that?
I didn't.
Yeah. That's, some say that's almost untouchable. I'm hoping that we elect someone who has experience. Not experience being a sheriff, because there's no such. It's one of those jobs that, unless you were sheriff in another county somewhere, you don't have experience. It's a job that you have to learn, just like everyone in here had to learn a job when they started working.
Yep.
But hopefully we can elect a sheriff and not a politician.
Amen.
My eyes, and I've always been at the bottom, my eyes working the road and working with these kids on the road, I call them kids even though they're in their 20s, we have a good view of what goes on. Why? Because we're still working the road. We don't have a desk job. We haven't worked up the ladder and worked in admin and all that stuff. We're still doing the job that we were passionate about at 21 years old. That's the kind of experience we need to look for. Someone who has real world experience, not office or political experience. I have seen it. I've seen politics infiltrate law enforcement, And that was one of the things, that caused me to leave the state.
Yep.
The politics were terrible.
So how, as sheriff, how would you deal with that? You'd have to. I
The
mean,
politics,
Yeah.
right. So you're gonna have somebody that can separate the two.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that can still do the job and do the enforcement side and run the sheriff's office. And then the politics, sometimes you have to put a hand up. Now, I don't have a lot of friends that are politicians in this county, because, well, Johnny, I'll give you a prime example. I get a lot of pushback for coming up here and talking by certain groups. Well, guess what? You guys aren't doing anything illegal. You may be voiceful, but you're still a citizen of this county. I'm not gonna not come talk to you because somebody down here or over there doesn't agree with your, whatever you're doing. So you need somebody that can say, okay, thanks, I'll take that into consideration. They're not gonna let that come into the agency. There's no reason for officers to have to deal with politics. I know Sheriff Stone, one of the things that the guys and girls liked about him so much that worked for him was he would come in at election time, he'd say, you let me worry about the politics, you worry about doing your job.
Yeah.
And that's spot on. That's spot on. Anyway, see, I like to talk. Before I ramble, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can we get a few questions?
Yes, that's what I was about to say. Before I ramble on and waste any more time.
You're not wasting time.
Let's
No.
take questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not right.
Ask me the hard question.
There
Yes,
you
sir.
go.
You mentioned DARE, and there's been so many other initiatives that have come through law enforcement on team, and they work,
Mhm.
and then they go away.
Mhm.
That just blows me away.
So, government, number
Bring them
one.
back?
Yes, absolutely. I campaigned on it, 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I would bring it back. But you have government, and then you have change of leadership. And I think that I also campaigned on putting or starting an actual K9 unit. So going from one K9 to an actual unit where each shift has a dog available. Because dogs are very important. I'm a huge dog person, by the way. Got to go pick mine up when I leave here. But the DARE program will be so simple to bring back.
Yeah, it's already.
You have SROs, we're already in the schools, okay? And then you have experienced officers that could teach and train them. So it's a no-brainer for me, a no-brainer. What else?
What about community policing?
Community policing, at face
I
value.
live 6 Mile.
Mhm.
You know, sheriff is 30 minutes away.
Right. Not supposed to be, but you're right.
I mean, that's just reality. And I'm not being critical. That's just fact.
You're right. And that's a big complaint that I heard last time. So we haven't really added any more units to the road in over 12 years. That's a problem. This county's growing. We need manpower. We still have a lot of people with admin jobs.
That's true.
As somebody who has done a lot of paperwork in their career, I don't necessarily know that a uniformed officer needs to be doing some of these admin jobs when we may be able to hire someone, a citizen that would put some more assets out or available. I'm a huge fan of supervisors being out and about. I've been blessed with some good supervision over the years with the state and with Greenville County. It's hard to not do your job when you hear your sergeant, first sergeant, or lieutenant answering calls or getting out with suspicious people or whatever the case may be. I'm a huge fan of that. I want to bring that here. But community policing, I guess the Google definition, I'm not a fan of. And I'm going to tell you why. And we actually have a community patrol unit at the agency I'm with now.
I got it on speed.
Yeah, they do a great job.
Yeah, they do.
Don't get me wrong, they do a great job. But they got away from doing the block parties and the face paintings and the balloons and all that stuff to just being part of that community and knowing their area. Everybody that wears a uniform and a badge should be doing that anyway. When I first came on, again, Oconee County, very rural. When you have a jury trial, you see the same people sitting on your jury that you just saw in the gas station getting a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So I had a sergeant, a supervisor, and he said, when you see someone checking the mail, pull over, talk to them. When you go in the gas station, talk to them. Ask them how things are going. Someone working in the yard, pull over. Hey, having any trouble, around here? A uniform is a great icebreaker. Great icebreaker. And we should be in tune with the community that we serve anyway, without having to have a special unit. Okay, so, and that's why I'm not a fan of the special unit to be doing stuff that we should be doing anyway. We are never so busy on calls with court or whatever the case may be, to where we can't talk to someone or interact with the people that we're serving. So,
I make it a habit when I'm out and about that if I see an officer parked somewhere, I stop and thank them for wearing that uniform. And I used to be a volunteer firefighter for many years, so I only got to see the tip of the iceberg of what y'all deal with.
Right.
But I make sure that they know with the crap that's going on in other states and the defunding and all that crap, I want the officers here that are over me to know that I appreciate them. And even when they change that uniform into street clothes like yourself tonight, you still have a bullseye on your back.
True.
And I also tell them, I live on 178, and when they go flying through there, whether it's fire, police, or ambulance, I'm in my prayer closet.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea where they're going or what they're going to run into. And so I want them to know they're passing my house, they're in my prayer closet. And that goes for all of Pickens County.
Well, and we all
And the state.
We all thank you for that. The good thing is the majority of us know that we have a lot of the public support. It's just, we just hear from the very small percentage of people who just absolutely don't like us for whatever reason. Yes, sir.
Yeah, David, we talked about drugs and it's bad all over. In Pickens County, it's worse. The meth problem and the suicide rate in Pickens County is one of the top in the South Carolina. And I've been here a long time, 74 years. And what I see, what I think has got a lot to do with it is lack of economic opportunity and jobs for our young people coming up. I'm a veteran and I go to Forest Acre School every year on Veterans Day. And we walk through the school and they got these kids sitting out here, 700, one school. And I think to myself, where are these kids gonna work? It's not in Pickens County. And so do you think that has something to do with us having a worse problem than some other counties around us?
I think, and if you're asking for my opinion, I think it is not necessarily a cause for it, but a result. Because we've had these drug issues for a while. It's not a secret. The kids that I see that I've dealt with have been on calls or even pulled a car over back in the day. They're a victim of their
Peer pressure.
parents, the situation that family's in. Rarely is it because they didn't have work. Usually it's because
They
they
didn't
were
wanna work.
addicted to a substance, whether it be drugs or alcohol. We also have a big mental health problem in this country that goes unaddressed, but I think that's a cause of their surroundings. I don't know that it's I agree with you 100%. If our schools were that packed in Pickens County, yeah, where are they gonna work? The fact of the matter is a lot of people travel for work, like myself. I travel across the river to go work in Greenville County. I can tell you now, either on 153 or 123 in the mornings and afternoons, a lot of people travel for work in Greenville County. But I agree with you, it is a problem. Is it the biggest problem or the biggest causation factor?
But you mentioned the parents, but they went through that too. They didn't have good opportunities.
Right.
And that may be the reason and it's gonna cascade on down. unless they do something in Pickens County about improving economic development and getting some jobs, and the county is just not interested. I'll tell you right now, they are not interested in doing it.
Well, keep in mind, and I'm sympathetic, towards that, but keep in mind, I know old cars and antiques and law enforcement. So when you start talking about infrastructure and business and all that stuff and economic stuff, I'm like, but I don't disagree with you, Alan. I don't disagree. Yes, sir.
Most of the young people that you deal with, like in the case of drugs, are from single parent households or no parent.
I don't have hard numbers. It seems to be.
I mean, there's not a lot of them that have both parents in the home that you encounter, is it?
That's the way it seems. Again, I don't have hard numbers, but it certainly seems that way. And I know a lot of the SROs who I speak with share that same sentiment. That there's problems at home. Yes, ma'am.
I know that this particular topic often goes hand in hand with drugs and mental health and so on, but we don't hear much about it. What are your thoughts on sex trafficking, which I have heard is quite evident in this county?
Yeah, so it's here.
Mm-hmm.
It's real.
Mm-hmm.
It is very hard to detect. We have a full-time task force officer with the Department of Homeland Security. That's all they focus on. And those guys do a good job. Now, we would see it on the interstate from time to time. Girls going from state to state with someone who they thought was someone else that they met on Snapchat, TikTok. By the way, if you guys have young grandchildren or children that have these apps on their phones, I really, really hope, number one, that you're setting parental controls up on them, and number two, that you are absolutely 100% in their business 24 hours a day. That is where a lot of it comes from.
Yeah.
They can go on these apps and, before too long you get somebody talking. They may have a picture of themselves or they're trying to be someone of the same age, and it's a dirty old man. We see it all the time, but it is real.
So
it's
is
just
that-
hard to detect.
Is that usually handled, like you said, with other agencies and not necessarily the sheriff's office?
Yes, so the sheriff's
Or is
office,
there, a working together with that?
again, depends on the agency, but I would like to think that the sheriff's office is working with the feds on things like that, because the federal government on the law enforcement side, they do have a lot more capabilities to do things that we can't. They can go further. Obviously, they can go across state lines. They can go out of country, which is awesome for some cases. But it is a big issue.
Yeah,
Again,
because
it's
with
just
those-
so hard for us to detect it unless we run up on a call and figure out there's more to it than meets the eye, or we have someone in the public who alerts us to suspicious activity. Maybe one of their neighbors down the street's always got different young girls in and out of the house, and it sounds off an alarm bell. But it's a real thing, unfortunately.
Do we have an SRO in every school here in Pickens County?
Yes, you have municipalities that cover some schools, and the sheriff's office covers others. I don't want to tell you wrong. I would assume it's 100% involvement, but I'm not 100%.
Well, I don't think they're all covering Liberty. They were talking about the Liberty council meeting the other night, and I don't think
They just posted a hiring for it too. The other
Yeah,
day.
they're doing some training on new ones. They did say that, but they have some that are pulling double duty because
Yeah.
they don't have enough yet to go around. They're still training some.
And that's not uncommon. So if you have, let's say you have 10 schools you're over, and you have 2 officers or deputies that either make promotion or they resign or they're injured, something happens, it's not unusual to pull an SRO from a school that's not too far away to cover both. And they'll just road back and forth. And I know that doesn't sound like the best possible scenario, but when it comes to manpower, sometimes that's the only way it's handled.
Yeah, because if you got a kid like some of these school shooters that are keeping an eye on that, they'll know when that SRO is not at that
Oh, yeah, they'll
school.
pick up on a pattern.
Oh, yeah.
Daniel?
Back to the human trafficking, a few years back, I carried my grandson with me to Texas. The last time I flew, there wasn't no TSA. So we're going through the line, and I'm in front, he's behind me. Well, they're checking my bag. I turn around and look, he's gone. They got him in the other line. So they basically helped me up, just going slow. You know, I put my shoes on, went in the airport, and he's standing there waiting. Told me they asked him 5 times if he was with me. I said, that's cool, I like
But
it.
that's right, that's a good thing.
I said, I like it. He said, Papa, there's 5 people asked me if I was flying with you. I said, it dawned on me when he said that, I said, these people are smart.
Yes, sir.
We got one over here first. And then
Okay.
in reference to laws that are passed that violate constitutional rights, where do you stand by way of enforcing laws that are passed?
Between what would be my office and the federal government?
No, between that would affect us as the citizens.
Oh, with what would be my office enforcing it?
Yes.
Okay.
Law versus U.S. Constitution. Yes.
Right, so when we take an oath in law enforcement, we take an oath to defend first our state constitution and then the United States Constitution. And they pretty much mirror each other, word for word. But I'll give you an example, red flag laws. That was a huge topic last time. And I still stand strong saying that I would not feel comfortable and would not be okay enforcing a law that would violate the Second Amendment with a piece of paper that a judge, maybe a healthcare worker, I don't know, signed and said, hey, this guy's got guns and he could be violent, so let's go take him. Number one, it's a good way to for a law enforcement officer to get killed. Number two, it violates your constitutional right. Okay? When we work every day, especially when I work on the drug side of things and searching cars and people and so on and so forth, I dealt with Fourth Amendment all the time. That's the biggest one that law enforcement deals with. And it always amazed me when folks said, I know my rights. Well, trust me, we know them too. They get drilled in our heads, especially number 4. Number 4. But I'll give you another example with gun stuff. Working the interstate and the big highways, you had a lot of folks that were from out of state passing through, traveling through. There were times where, we would ask for consent or have problem calls, search a vehicle, we'd find a firearm underneath the seat. Now, anybody that's familiar with our gun laws in South Carolina knows that you just can't have a gun shoved under your seat, right? Okay. Well, instead of saying, ma'am, we found a gun under your seat, turn around, put your hands behind your back, I'm gonna read your rights, you're under arrest for violation of South Carolina carrying concealed arm. I did what I feel like is my duty, and I educated that driver. Ma'am, sir, you come through South Carolina, glad you got a firearm. I wish everybody carried them that it's got good intentions. When you come through here, this is where South Carolina would like for you to just store your weapon. Okay? And send them on the way. Instead of charging them with a felony. So, but I'm big on that kind of stuff.
In reference to that same line of thought, not just with guns, but let's say that back in, we had a shutdown, we can't meet for church. Well, if we're gonna meet for church, somebody calls, says, hey, there's 65 people over here at this church, and there's not supposed to be more than X amount of people, and I need you to go shut that down. What are you gonna do?
Tell them to call somebody else. Short answer. Yeah, short answer. I thought that stuff was ridiculous anyway. And you got to understand, we get a lot of calls for service and things like that, where as soon as it comes out over the radio or on the computer, whichever way we get dispatched, we're just like, why? That's not. Is that really a crime? No. Sir.
I just wanted to clarify what you were saying earlier. From your point of view, within the budget that the sheriff's office has, you believe that you could put more people out in the patrol without having to get more budget for more personnel?
Yeah, so the budget, from my understanding, has more than doubled in the past 12 years. Okay. What have we done with it? It's rarely about the money. It's about allocation, where that money's being spent. Again, you know, identifying as a Republican and a conservative and a constitutionalist for this office that I'm seeking, it's very important to me to spend that money wisely. My goal right now is my first term, starting year one, is to return money to the general fund instead of waiting and doing a mad dash at the end and going and buying polo shirts or boots or something that we may or may not need. Why not turn that money back over? Isn't that what true conservatism is anyway? So I don't think that it's the money. I think it's allocation. There's other small things too that, you know, the public probably wouldn't think about that I would implement, and again, campaigned on it last time. I'm not a huge fan of unmarked cars. We have a ton of them in law enforcement now, a ton. I drive one now, not because I want to, but that's what was issued to me. You go to the LEC parking lot, at least where I'm at now, we have a ton of unmarked cars. Oh my gosh. So think about if all those cars were marked. 75, 80 additional marked cars on the road. Would that not change things? Because I can tell you now, criminals typically don't want to be where the police is at. Well, if they don't know that we're a cop, they're going to keep right on doing what they're doing.
183. Do you think that would help, having more and more cars on 183? Too many people get killed on that. Right?
Give me 3 months and the driving behaviors would change.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've done it myself. I have a deputy sitting there at the gas station, and I've come down through there at 65, 70 miles an hour, and they just sitting there because they have no radar.
Right. Yeah, 3 months, and it would be fixed. Again, you know, having a traffic background, so we don't need a traffic cop in there. All he's going to do is write tickets and generate money. Well, do some research and figure out how much money from a ticket actually goes back to the issuing agency, number one. Number two, we do not like writing tickets. I don't like writing tickets. There are some guys that do like writing tickets. Okay. The majority of us do not, because that means that we have to come back for court. Typically on our day off after working third shift. That's not fun.
Yeah.
No one likes getting in bed at noon to be back up at 6 to go to work, right? The majority of activity that I wrote in my traffic days were warnings. Why? No court. I got my point across. I slowed you down or stopped you from running a red light or running out of the road or whatever it is that you were doing. You don't get any points, so you don't hate my guts, and then you're going to change your driving behavior. Now, it might last 5 minutes, it might last 5 months. That's what we're after. 183 is no different.
Does they only
No
have
good.
one more question? It's 8:25. Are we good?
Anybody want to clear up any rumors they may have heard about me? Now's the time to do it. You're
I
going to
heard
hear
you
a ton
like
of stuff.
dogs.
I'll just say one thing.
Yes, sir.
I think you answered a question that I would ask, that I think you would protect us from the federales, I hope.
Yes.
If it ever came to that. Let's just hope it never comes to that.
Yeah.
It probably will. I don't know if I live to see it, but it probably will.
I think it, you know, again, my opinion, history shows that they come in little by little by little by little.
Well, they've been doing that for decades now.
Right.
Trying to
Can I
gain
ask
federal
one thing real
influence
quick?
over local law enforcement.
Have we got time for one more?
Just one, I promise. Hands-free devices, so people are paying more attention. That still is up in the air. You know, I know it's a big deal to deal with that, but at the same time, they pay more attention on what they're doing. No more fender benders as much, no more over the lines. I mean, I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I would like to see it. Georgia's had it for a handful of years now. I think it's doing fairly well there.
Yes.
I know when I go through Georgia,
Yep.
I'm not messing with my
Right.
my phone. I think it's a good thing, but that's something that needs to go to Columbia. You know, if people are actually
thought we had
passionate
that
about it.
Yeah.
My question to you is, how many people do you think would be passionate about that? Because I pass plenty of cars where it's.
Exactly. And it's not just phones either,
There's
but
plenty of deputies doing it.
exactly.
They
They don't even use turn signals either. Liberty especially. Liberty will do it and run the stop sign too.
Thank y'all for your time. Thank you for the questions and your patience. And thank you for the invite again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're glad.
Thank y'all.